Okay, I guess we're pretty much in focus there. Well, hello, Transverter fans. How you doing? Hope everybody had a good Christmas and a Happy New Year. Hope Santa was good to you. Okay, this video is about a device that I've taken a little bit of time off and tried to perfect. And so far, this is what I've come up with. This comes from a question a viewer asked me about the possibility of putting a transverter on 160 meters. I hadn't got to that point yet, but he posed a good question. The little TCXOs, as I call them, temperature compensated oscillators, little oscillator in a box, they run on 5 volts. You can't always find them at exactly the frequency you want. And for one idea, you really wouldn't want that anyhow. It would work, but a problem that's plagued the transverters all along is when I use one of those, you have 10 kc increments on the CB radio, of course, from channel to channel, and that would require the CB radio to have a pretty wide open clarifier to get in between. And a lot of the hams don't set exactly on a 5 or a 0. They're all over the place. This circuit takes care of that. It uses a TCXO to make up most of your frequency, and then a variable component to take up the rest. So you actually have a VFO. You could dial across the frequency, and I've designed this around leaving the CB radio sitting on channel 30, 27.305. You don't have to move the radio from that channel. The radio will take care of the rest of the upper or lower sideband, however you choose. But you leave the channel selector on channel 30. You will have to come up with a front panel control. This one is if you can see it operate there, you need a nice smooth variable, a kind of a gear drive or some. This is a part off of a Yaesu FT101 carcass that I just had donor for parts, so I scrapped it out. This was the load capacitor in that radio. The little coupling link is from that radio, and the little ball bearing veneer drive is from that radio, and of course the front knob. So you would mount this in the front of your cabinet on your transverter, and you'd be able to dial across the band. The VFO, the variable frequency part of this, runs at a real low frequency. It runs from 1.305 megahertz to 1.505 megahertz. And that's actually, of course, that's in the broadcast band. But the mixer tube takes that frequency, mixes it with the TCXO, and in this case the TCXO is a 24 megacycle oscillator. So it would take and mix the 1.305 with the 24 megs to come up with 25.305, and that would be at 2 megacycle, the top of the band. And at the bottom of the band, it would be 1.505 megahertz, and that would correspond with an output of 25.505, or 1.8 megahertz. So what this device does, it makes the frequency between 25.305 and 25.505 to mix with the 27.305. to get down to the 160 meter band. Now, I have experimented and I found all the necessary components for 80 meters, 60 meters, 40 meters, and I'm still at this time working on 20 and 15. Probably within 2 or 3 more weeks I'll have a chance to experiment, and the actual thing that I haven't tried yet is the coil. The math works, and the oscillator doesn't have to be changed. Pretty much this oscillator stays the same all the way across. What gets changed is the TCXO. Like in the case for 80 meters, we changed to a 25.175 megahertz oscillator. For 60 meters, we changed to a 20 megahertz oscillator. 40 meters, a 22.1184, and then 20 meters, we changed to an 11 megahertz TCXO, and for 15 meters, a 4 megahertz TCXO. So if you want this info, let me know, and I'll show you my email address here in a bit. These are some parts you're going to need. A variable trimmer. This is the best if you can find something like this, because you're going to need to trim it. This will be a front panel control. This little mock-up actually would sit something like this in behind the front panel, and you'd have your main tuning right next to it. This thing, you'd have it sitting right here, and then if you move very far, you'll need to peak the output of here to get your power. So that's why you need one more trimmer for that. These would work. They're not, I've seen these on eBay. These kind of parts are really getting hard to find. So grab anything you can find. These would work. Something like that. Coil forms. That's a hard thing to find. Ideally, you want this. A ceramic with a slug tuned core. If you don't have that, this would actually work. I'm not sure what that's out of, but it's a ceramic tube. It's fitted with threads in the bottom, so you can mount it with a screw to the chassis. And this is just a standoff, porcelain standoff, and it has threads on each end, so you could bolt one end to the chassis, and the other end you put a solder lug on and tie off your wire to that, and that'll handle your 60 turns of wire for the local oscillator. If you can find one of the Johnson Messenger 1, the Johnson Messenger 2, the business band Johnson Messenger 202, or the 23 channel Johnson Messenger, I believe it's a 323, maybe it's a 223. Anyhow, it's a Johnson Messenger 2 turned sideways with a nice front panel, and it's got 23 channels. Snag one of those, and you'll have, I think, about 4 or 5 of these cores. You'll have enough for your whole project. Plus, there is a plate tune cap that is similar to this, mounted on the chassis, and what it's used is in the Pi network, in the tune and load section, where they peak the radio to its antenna. It's actually got a variable trimmer like that. So if you could snag one of those, you got a good load of parts. The tubes and everything, even the power transformer, is going to be able to be used for the transverter project. I built one inside of an old Johnson Messenger 2 years ago, and it worked quite nicely. I was pretty much, like I say, all the parts, your caps, everything's there. I'll give a little bit of a demonstration here. I've got my ham radio tuned pretty close. Okay, there's 25505. I don't have any voltage regulator on this thing at all, and that's what you're going to need when you build it into the circuit. But it's pretty stable running at as low a frequency that it is. There'll be a little bit of drift, but if you use a voltage regulator, when I get a chance, I'll have the whole schematics drawn out, and I'm thinking probably you'll end up using an OA2 voltage regulator, which regulates it at 150 volts. Right now, since I've been working with a receiver project on my other videos, I discovered that this 12BE6 runs on 12 volts. So I've done most of my experimenting just with using 12 volts, and it runs just fine. It's just when it comes time to getting a little more power out of this to drive the other mixer to make the new frequency, we'll have to have a little more output. So the tube will need to run at about 100 to 150 volts. But building it and experimenting it, you can do that with this schematic. Everything here will work. Just this is it running. And I'll show you. I don't have the tuner, but it has a slug. Get the screwdriver in the slot there. Oh, come on. There it is. Now see, I moved it. There it is. Moved down to 25502 just by doing that. But that's the output just being picked up on a little stub antenna showing that it is working. Runs on 12 volts. Yeah, so schematics. Move this out of the way here. Send me an email and I'll get the schematic out to you, and you can start experimenting with it. And I'll send you the update as soon as I get it finished. I've left the coil dimensions blank on the last two of the 20 and 15 meter. The TCXO I've got figured out, but this little mixer coil right here, I haven't got the dimensions for that figured out yet. It'll be a little bit different because we're all the way down at 5 megahertz on the 20 or the 15 meter transverter. Its mixer coil is going to run at about 5 megahertz. So shoot me an email and I'll get those schematics out to you. And any advice, go ahead and ask it, make comments. Let me know if you have a problem figuring out some of the parts, or if I haven't explained anything. I'm more than happy to work one-on-one with anybody that has a question. So thank you, and we'll try to come up with probably the transmitter side build on that transverter here real soon. I'm still going to work it to, let's see, yeah, it's still going to be on the 40 meter one, but we'll walk you through the mixer stage on that, just with a 20 megahertz TCXO. Okay, till next time, see you then. Thank you for watching. Bye.